Welcome to the Garden of Belonging, a podcast that explores how we can more fully belong to ourselves. I'm your host, Kim K. Gray, a writer, life coach, homeschooling mom, and fellow human on this journey. Here in the Garden of Belonging, all of us belongs. Here we tend to all those parts we've hidden in hopes of fitting in, bringing forth the beauty that is our fullest selves. Let us journey together to more compassion for who we truly are and more courage to be that person. Today, I hope you'll enjoy my conversation with Louise Warren. Louise is the founder of Rare Gem Creatives. She is a passionate creative mentor and singer-songwriter. Over the past decade, she has penned songs in the hundreds, performed at venues all over the Southeast, and opened for musicians like Chuck Leavell of the Rolling Stones, Jimmy Hall, and Edwin McCain. Louise is a certified coach with both the Beautiful You Life Coaching Academy and the Creativity Coaching Association, completing 100 plus hours coaching. Her vision with Rare Gem Creatives is to provide community and support for the people who long to live more creatively vibrant lives. This was a really fun conversation with Louise. We talked a lot about creativity, about how it should be playful, and how we need self-trust and courage. Just really, really, really fun conversation. I hope you'll enjoy it. Hi, Louise. Thank you for joining me on the Garden of Belonging podcast.
Hi, Kim. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, it's wonderful to have you here. So this season, I'm talking with folks about this idea of blooming bravely. When I say those words, what comes up for you and how does that show up in your life?
I think for me, the very first thing that brings to mind is allowing yourself to unfold. Which when I think of that, I definitely think of my journey with creativity, but also my journey with coaching and with therapy and all of the self-development that I've done in my life, because I do think you kind of take this baby step in one direction and then things just kind of snowball. So I feel like blooming bravely to me is allowing yourself to just come out of hiding and be full in your expression of who you are, which has been a huge part of my own journey.
Yeah. I love that word unfolding. Like as soon as you said it, I was seeing like the way that the petals of a flower kind of unfold and open.
Same.
Like beautiful image. And I really love how people use different words for that idea. You know, I've heard some people talk about like living, you know, one of my other guests talked about living unbound, like unbound was her word.
Ooh,
I know another person who uses unraveled, you know, and you have this unfolding, and like, I just love all the different words and the different like energies and images they provoke.
Right. Yeah. It is such a beautiful phrase. So you gave me good material to work with here. But I think, I feel like when I think of unfolding, I just feel like it's the opposite of being, tight in our buds, like that quote, like the danger of staying tight in our bud was greater than that of blooming. I'm slaughtering that quote. That is not verbatim, but it's the general concept. So please, dear listeners, look up the actual quote. But I feel like the main thing that I feel in that is that it's allowing yourself to be yourself. And I think that's the journey that we are all on, because we're not exactly taught that it's always safe to do that in creativity or in life.
Yeah. I think we got to get a lot of messages that it's not, and that we should not, don't unfold because
in a multitude of ways, it's, don't physically unfold because, you're supposed to look this way and fit under these standards. Don't pursue the things that are maybe more so self-actualizing for you, because that's not the practical path. Don't say what you really feel because you might upset somebody. That's a form of unfolding. It's just allowing yourself to feel safe, to be seen and be and take up space.
Yeah.
When you unfold and bloom as a flower, I'm thinking of that flower visual again. When you unfold, then that's you taking up more space than you did before. And I think a lot of us, especially women, are terrified of that because we're taught that that is undesirable somehow for us to exist in the space that we deserve to exist in.
Yes, totally. So speaking of that hiding, like, was there a time in your life where you felt like you were hiding and you were that tight bud, afraid to bloom? And like, what was supportive to you in breaking out of that and expressing yourself more fully?
I think there have been many different times that I felt that way. I think a lot of my journey has been as a very shy, sensitive person, getting more comfortable being secure in taking up space and being secure in being myself. So I would say there's, a multitude of times I think I go through the cycle of asking myself the question, am I really allowing myself to relax here and be
Mm,
myself, or am I trying to appear a certain way or control external perceptions or external ways of existing in this world? Um, and I think the thing that's always been supportive to me in that is whether or not I'm creating.
mm,
It is always a sign, I think, for me of mental wellness. If I am creating, I'm usually in a better place and I'm more comfortable with myself. It's my way of allowing myself to unfold and show up truly as who I am, and just kind of hold space for all that that is and not judge it. When I'm doing it in my creative practice the best, that's what it feels like to me, is that I'm holding complete and total space for myself, and whatever wants to come out is safe and free to come out.
mm. I like that, what you said about the question of, am I the most relaxed in this space? I can't remember exactly what you said, but
Yeah.
that idea of being relaxed and not controlling. Because I think that's challenging, right? But it's a beautiful question.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful question.
It's kind of the opposite of creativity to me, is to be in control.
Mm,
I think that we tend to think that we got to buckle down and create and produce and make something and schedule it, and every single way that we tend to think of it in our society is by force. Like, oh, you've got to get on a good schedule, and all of these things are supportive, but I think that the schedule only allows you to apply multiple times, like, say a moisturizer. It's going to work better if you apply it every day than if you apply it every other day. But I don't think of it as tightly restrictive as our standard ideas of what productivity is. I think what it actually is a safe space and time within a busy schedule that teaches you very much otherwise to let go and allow what needs to be seen and what needs to come out for you to come out for you. And that is a very rare thing that I don't think a lot of us make enough space for
mhm.
in our day and in our society. I think that we could be a healthier society as a whole if that idea of releasing control was more prevalent
Hmm.
in our day-to-day lives.
Yeah. So what does creativity mean to you? And like, is it something that everyone has access to, or is it just those elite talented few?
You know how I feel about this. I am passionate about my belief that it is not this form of elitism. It drives me nuts when people push and peddle that idea that you have to be born with a certain talent to access creativity. Obviously, I think people have tendencies in their personalities and in their abilities, like what they're going to lean towards and what they're going to be most excited to learn. But that to me just pales in comparison to what creativity actually is, which is just, it's playing.
Mm.
And we all do that as kids. We all do it, in our own ways. It doesn't matter if my version of play looks like your version of play. It's allowing us to make space in our minds. It's really mindfulness, in my opinion. I really think that it's just being present and allowing ourselves to see what what could go together, what could separate, how we could put on a different set of glasses and view something from a unique perspective. I think absolutely everybody in this world is creative. And creativity doesn't have to look like painting something, writing something, drawing something. It can look as simple as coming up with a cure for a disease. Well, not simple. I don't mean to, not simple. It can look as something like coming up with a cure for a disease, or something as simple as, what am I making for dinner tonight? And what ingredients do I have in my kitchen right now? And I think it's more so a process than it is a product.
Mm-hmm. I hear this sense of curiosity in what you're sharing, like curiosity about like what wants to come through me, curiosity about the world. I think in a lot of ways humans are creative, and that is how we have survived, because we have tried things that others hadn't tried before, and that's how
Exactly.
like we've had all this progress and changes in our world, and how we discover that this mushroom is edible and this one is very much not.
It's fascinating to me, because I always wonder that. I'm like, how did we come up with this remedy? How did we know that this mushroom is the one that tastes best with this? And it's just a lot of experimentation. And luckily, when you're working on something like a page or canvas, or just playing around with thoughts and ideas, even about a business, the risk factor is so much lower than we tend to think it is. If you eat a poisonous mushroom, then that's that's a high risk right there. But if you write the wrong word, quote unquote, or a word that doesn't fit for what you want to write with a song idea, the risks are very low. You just scratch it out and try again. And I think that our society doesn't really welcome that way of thinking, that do-over way of thinking, or the, forever chances to get something. Like, we kind of have this one-shot mentality, and it's pushed in the creative world too. I think immediately of that movie with Eminem, 8 Mile, where he's like, you've only got one shot, one
opportunity. I thought of that exact same thing.
Yeah. So like, you start like hearing that bass beat in your mind, and you're like, I've only got one shot to do this. But the truth is, the gift of creativity is that you don't. It's a practice. It's not a destination. You will never, ever, ever get there. I've never known a person to arrive at a sense of completion with their own creativity. If anything, they just find more things they want to work on and more things they want to do. And whether that's, and I mean that in terms of pursuing creativity from a business standpoint, and also from a creation standpoint. It doesn't matter if you've done something that you're really proud of in the business realm of creativity, you will always want more. And I think that that's a good thing to accept in that realm, and a beautiful thing to recognize in the creation realm, because it gives us a chance to get messy. I think that we come from a society where from a very young age we are taught, this is your test, and these tests produce scores, and these scores produce, grades, and these grades produce, future outcomes that are eternal and that you can never shake. And it's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
I think that we tend to think of everything as very permanent, but the very definition of life itself is impermanence. And I think that that's why we are all entitled to creativity, is because we are all human beings. We all experience things, and our very nature of impermanence is, right up there with creativity's impermanence and life impermanence. We have the ability to tap into that whenever we want. We're in the flow of this thing called life, and it will never be as it is now. And that's actually, it's not as doomsday as that may sound. That's actually an exciting thing when you think about the fact that it opens you up to so many opportunities creatively, that you can wake up one day with an entirely different set of ideas than you did the previous day. And one of those may be something that you truly feel passionate about. You get to choose which ones you act on and get endless opportunities.
Yeah. So the thing that's coming up for me is this idea of like the brave part of the blooming, right? That it seems like that in some sense that creativity and our like unfolding requires a bit of bravery. And so I guess my question to you is, um like, how did you build that trust in yourself to show up to that creative practice and to create and to be messy and all of that?
The same way that one actually builds any practice, like a meditation practice. At first, when you sit down, your brain won't quit thinking about things that are not meditation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a constant effort to release those thoughts and refocus on your meditation or your breath. Likewise, with creativity, when you first sit down, at least for me, the first thing that starts firing off are the negative inner mean girl thoughts that I have. And this happens for me at various stages. So if I haven't been writing as much, this voice will be a little louder. So it's not something that I have eradicated permanently in my existence. Trust me. But the very first thing that I hear is that inner mean girl that we all have, or inner mean person. It does not matter if it's a girl, but mine is a girl. I haven't named her, but I probably should, just so I can talk back to her a little bit. But she tells me over and over again, this is awful. This is, not the level that you should be writing at. How dare you even think that you can do this? All the fun critical comments that we all think when we are not critiquing our work, but just beating ourselves down and telling ourselves that we can't.
Yeah.
So I think that the practice of creativity is sitting through that enough that voice gets quieter, not goes away, because sometimes that voice is actually very valuable when you're editing something, because then you can consult with that voice in a peaceful way and say, hey, now leave your attitude at the door, but what do you think about this line, and can I change it? What would you do differently? But I think that a lot of my creative practice is making peace with that voice, but it comes from the repetition of doing it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just keep showing up. And I think of that voice, she's just wanting to protect you, right? Like she's there trying to protect you from that like fall on your face messiness that maybe, like, oh, we're going to show up and like people are going to think we're this fraud and whatever. She's just trying to keep us safe. And I love that you call on her later, when you have that sort of like safe container for her to come out and like, okay, I'm ready for you to bring a little critique. And in that sense, she's almost like, rather than the protection, you're leveraging her to bring you up to your highest ability, right?
I'm a firm believer that all of the phases of creativity have a purpose, but you really cannot mix them together. They are not supposed to go together. I don't think that she needs to exist in the room where I'm letting things just kind of unfold and express myself. Like, she doesn't need to be in that room where I am just freely brainstorming and creating. She needs to be in the next room where I'm taking a look at what I just made and I'm asking those questions. So I think that by thinking of this as a person that is separate from myself, that is showing up in this way, then I feel like I have more control over how I interact with that voice. Whereas if you think of it as a part of yourself, you're like, well, what am I supposed to do? Just like cut this voice out of my mind. Like, you feel like it's more a part of you, and therefore you can't rid yourself of it. And I think that over time I've learned that, you want these different, it sounds really crazy, but you want these different voices in your head helping you throughout all of these different phases. It's like I have a different voice that shows up when I am promoting my work too. It's like my business hat that I put on. And that person speaks very differently to me than any other person in the creative process. So it's utilizing all of these different modes that you go into throughout all of this. and allowing them to be okay and not judging them, not judging that harsh voice as it enters into the scene or tries to enter in the scene at that point, to say, hey, I understand where you're coming from, but I want to hold off on doing this, and I want to get this idea completely down. Can we do that? You negotiate with this person in your head and say, I'm going to open up the door for you, and you can go wait in the next room, and when I'm ready, I'll bring you in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I often interact with that in my writing where, like, you know, I try not to do any editing, you know, the first pass through. Like there's like this desire sometimes to like scratch this out.
Oh yeah.
And do something new. And I try to do that as little as possible. Like occasionally, like I'll do that because like I write a word, but then like a better word pops in, you know, and I cross it out, whatever. But in general, it's like, no, I'm not going to rewrite this whole sentence. I'm just going to push through in that second piece. If I do it late, you know, if I'm planning to like publish it or something and I look at it again later, that's when I can like clean up.
Right. And I think that some people can bring, I think that's like a higher advanced level, is then you can start bringing this person in for a quick peek at the work and then kicking them out.
Yeah.
For me, I know in the very beginning of my songwriting, when I was really getting serious about it and really buckling down and wanting to write every single day. That was my goal at the time. It was to write a song every day. And one of the things that I had to do first in order to accomplish that goal was to figure out how to just get through the idea, even if it, you know, wasn't exactly as I wanted it to be. And I think that that's when I kind of developed this method of, you know, this flowing through my ideas and then the more critical editing of my ideas. And I think that those stages are very important and helpful. I think as you get more comfortable with yourself and your own creativity, then you can switch between those modes a lot faster. And that just comes with practice. It's like with anything, you're going to start off really slow and you're going to, you know, work through understanding how this process flows for you. But then when you are confident and comfortable with it, and it's not going to wreck your day to let that critical voice in a little bit more, then you can start bringing her in the room, or this, you know, you can even think of this as like a non-binary creature. I don't care. It does not matter. I just say her because that's what works for me.
Yeah.
But then you can start bringing this, you know, this creature, this existence beyond yourself into the room a lot sooner and in different stages. So it just sounds to me like you're at an advanced level where you can do that and still continue to create.
Yeah. Because I think the problem that I would run into in the past is like, you know, if I get too caught up in that, like, this isn't quite right, then I get stuck and the rest of the idea is lost, or, you know, like you lose the flow. Whereas like, I just want to, like you were saying, sort of like get through the flow, let things flow through, and then clean it up later.
Because I would have to say 9 times out of 10, when I'd speak to my other creative friends, the number one thing that they would tell me is that they could never finish ideas, that they were not good at completing what they were working on, and that was a really big problem in their creative lives, that they couldn't reach a point of completion with an idea or a story or a song, and that they just keep this idea and hold on to it for a long time, and it would never reach the point of completion. So I think for me, the way that I tended to think about it was, if I can just get the idea down and then I can move on from it, then I can go back and edit it as many times as I want to edit it. But I just need to get something down and have something solid in order to release myself from this kind of like trap, this mental trap of I will never complete this or finish it. I got this idea from a book called Art and Fear. And in it, he describes this pottery class in which the entire class was divided into 2 sections. So the first section was just to work on one piece of pottery the entire semester. The second section was to work on producing as many pieces of pottery as they potentially could. And what he discovered, this teacher discovered, fascinatingly enough, was that the better quality pottery came from the second group, in which they were trying more and more and more and applying it. So that's what originally gave me the idea, like, okay, I'm just going to write, and I'm going to show up every day for my writing, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow, is allowing ourselves to be in the process. And I think that this is where the whole elitist idea of creativity really messes with our ability to uncover what is actually there in us. Is that we think, and we think this because we are taught this, is that we're just going to go into a room, come out sounding like Mariah Carey, write a song like the Beatles, or we're nothing. Yeah. Because that's the narrative. That's the constant, perpetual narrative that we are taught and that we are sold and marketed to. And it's an interesting marketing point to sell art that way. I mean, of course, who wouldn't want to hear about a story of this person that just came out with this talent, and then all of a sudden this stuff just went like this for them. But it's the same story over and over again. And it's not the real story, because if you actually speak to the artists themselves, whether it's Mariah Carey or the Beatles, they practiced endlessly to get to that point and that level of comfortability with themselves and their creativity. So I think that there's a lot of books that have kind of uncovered this idea for me. Another really great one I would recommend is Talent is Overrated. And that one really just tore the lid off of my idea that it was just about showing up and being talented, because we put this cap on ourselves when we think about it that way. Yeah. We put this ceiling on ourselves, like, well, I wasn't born sounding like this, so I never will. And automatically we give up. When in actuality, what would happen if that same person said, well, I wasn't born sounding this way, but what if I worked at it every day? I promise you they're going to get better. It's a muscle. Yeah. It's a muscle. And creativity is the same way. It's like, no one pops out of the womb an absolute confident, developed artist. No one. I've never met one. That would truly be a story to tell.
Yeah. And even when you think of like prodigy kind of people, it's not that they, I've just, what popped in my mind was that show about chess, Queen's Gambit, and like how
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, well, I mean, she's this amazing chess player, and it seems like she just shows up on this scene and she's amazing at chess. But the truth of the matter is she's been playing chess every day through her whole childhood, and you think of people like Einstein or whatever, they've been working on these things from a very early time because they're so passionate and curious about it.
And they tell us this. That's the ironic part about this, is if you go back and you read interviews with these people, they actually tell you this. Yeah. They actually tell you that they were no good at what they were doing. We just laugh at that and go, oh, that's just, a funny little bit of humility there. Yeah. But they were actually being serious. They didn't feel like they were any good at this, and maybe somebody else around them told them they weren't. They just decided that this mattered enough for them to sit down and do the work that it takes to get to the level. I know that Lizzo, who I absolutely love her voice and I love her energy and the message that she spreads, she in an interview said that when she first started singing, she was absolutely terrible at it. Now, when we hear her hit those notes now, we would never think that. Right. You would never sit there thinking, oh, I bet when she was 16, she really stunk at this. No, you don't think that, because that's not the story that, a label wants to tell, or any kind of marketing firm would like us to know. They do kind of want to add this bit of magical mystery around creativity, because then that becomes a rare product to push a certain way. And it is rare because it's coming through her. Yeah. And no one can create like she does. That's the rare part. Yeah. When I say rare gem, I don't mean that creativity is rare or talent is rare. I mean, your creativity is rare. Your expression of that is rare, because it's never going to exist in the world again. It's never going to. You could have two twins and they're going to approach something completely different. Two siblings will approach something completely different.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the rare and the unique part to me.
Mm-hmm. Just soaking that in.
Mhm.
So what would you say to someone who wants to get more in touch with their creativity and wants to sort of break through that fear of messing up or not being good enough or whatever? Or like what should they do?
I think the first step is to decide what your goal is going to be, because a goal to me is an anchor,
Mm.
and it keeps you moving when otherwise you might not. So for me, my goal was that I wanted to write a song every day. Now, it doesn't have to look lofty to anybody else. It's just something that is enough of a stretch for you that you feel like you can do it, but that it will challenge you and it will stretch you. So say you are somebody who has not used creative expression at all, but you want to start writing. Maybe start by sitting down and writing in like a sentence a day journal. So that is something that may be a stretch goal. So I think first anchor yourself with a goal. And then I think the second step in my mind is active awareness as you move through that process, that this is about mindfulness and it's not about the outcome of this goal. It really isn't. It's about engaging with the process and seeing what comes up for you, because that is a much more important thing to accomplish in this time than any product would ever be, than any one song, than any idea that you have or any book that you have. If you can learn how to master the process of hearing your thoughts, moving through them, still committing to focusing on the goal, a lot of it is just about mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
It's breathing through the critical voices, it's breathing through the distractions, it's breathing through whatever society ideas we have in place about creativity, and just allowing yourself to do it in small increments over time. Because I think a lot of the time we think that it has to look like, I'm going to write a symphony. And
Tomorrow.
tomorrow. And it better be the best thing ever. Otherwise I'm horrible and I stink and I give up. No, just write a note. Write a note of the symphony, or write a word down in your journal. It may seem like it is not accomplishing anything, but what it's actually doing is getting you comfortable and creating that safe space. Because for you to truly make work that moves you and that you feel proud of, the first step is you have to have that sense of safety. And for me, I do those things best when I have a goal in mind, because then I take the focus on like off of myself and onto that goal. And then when I'm allowing myself to be mindful and very present through it, and showing up every day definitely helps. It really does, because then it just becomes a habit.
Yeah.
Even if it's 5 minutes, I think that we tend to think that anything that we do needs to be an hour or 2 hours or like blocked out like that. It does not.
Yeah.
The best writing I've ever done in my life, I did it in like 20 minutes. And it's because when you have that sense of safety, then all of a sudden it's easy for you to unfold. It's like if you have a best friend and you guys need to call and catch up over everything that's happened in the last week and a half. If you have that sense of rapport with them, it's going to be easy for you to do it very quickly. If you're speaking to somebody that maybe is a new friend or a stranger, it's going to be a lot more difficult, because first you have to determine how far to go, how much you trust them, where those boundaries are. There's a lot of internal work that goes into that, and it's very laborious and it's tiresome. So creating that sense of safety, I would say, is the very first step. However you need to do it, light a candle, make a cup of coffee, make it a date with yourself. It does not matter what it looks like. It just matters that it works for you.
Yeah. As you were talking, I was thinking about sort of the comparison of expectations between sports and creativity. When you think of sports, like you have like your events where you are expected to show up and do your best, right?
Yes.
But in between those events, you have your practices.
Yes.
Where you're just, trying to make improvements, trying new things, stretching yourself. And you don't necessarily have to show up as your best in those spots. But yet with creativity, we seem to expect that every time we sit down, we're at an event.
Yes.
Right? As opposed to like It's my practice. When I think about what you said about writing a song every day, that's 365 songs. And even if like only 10 of them were amazing, that would be awesome, right? You'd have like an album in a year, right?
That's how people do it. And that's the thing is it's like, some of those songs are about donuts. I'm not even kidding. I've actively written a song about craving donuts before. And
it's understandable. Donuts are
yeah,
delicious.
I mean, that was my entire pandemic theme in 2020 was craving donuts. And I wrote a song about it. And I honestly need to share that one because I've had a lot of people request it. I've had this kind of like joke with my family and friends who have heard it that this is going to be the one that catapults me. That is going to be the donut song. Which
awesome.
Is just, and that's not even the goal for me, but it's so funny to think about that because I think that we really do our best work when we are relaxed and when we allow ourselves to just be, and it's absolutely right. Like, I think, and there are a lot of comparisons, I think, between creating and competing. And I think that that's where a lot of us get tripped up mentally. I think that we are taught very much so that we have to be the best or our work means little. And that message is reinforced. We do treat the business of creativity as though it is a sport. We have competitions for it. We have award ceremonies for it. We have charts for it. We have ways of tracking who sold the most and who did the best. But that's separate.
It's just popularity. It's not.
Yeah, that
doesn't necessarily say anything about you because there's probably like that, that small group of people out there that just think you're exactly what they want, what they need, what they need to hear, what they need to feel when they listen to you or see you, whatever.
And furthermore, imagine being that for yourself first. I think that's what the gift of creativity truly is, because I think the happiest, most creative, fulfilled moments in my life is when I wrote something and that song saw me fully. Like it just saw me where I was. And that sounds like a strange phrase to say about a song, like like that I'm staring at it going, oh, we see each other. That sounds a little narcissistic. But what I mean by that is that I truly said what I felt. And I showed up as the human that I was in that moment. And it didn't matter if anyone else saw that. I felt like I held myself in that moment. And I think that's the true gift of it. And then everything else is just a choice and what you want to do with it beyond that point. And I think that's the gift of a creative practice is feeling like you have a better relationship with yourself.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Because as you were explaining that, I was just thinking about the times when I felt that same thing, where like something that I've written, it just feels like it so captures what's on my heart or, and in a way that I think like, I don't know how you feel about creativity, but sometimes I feel like it's not me. It's like something working through me. And so then I like read those words and I don't feel like I wrote them, but I feel like they just are so true.
They poured out of you. And I think I completely agree with that. I do feel like it's tapping into something greater. And I feel like it is a very spiritual practice to me.
Yeah.
And I feel like it is tapping into our greater heart as humanity, in this exact moment in time. Yeah. And that's pretty magical. It doesn't have to exist at birth for that to be magical. It's like we don't need to write that narrative anymore with creativity. Like it already is a beautiful process, no matter when it happens, because it is us tapping into our own humanity. And I think that the times that something has comforted me the most, it's when it really sees the fullness of what that means, the compassion and the struggle and those, it almost says the thoughts that we all have, but don't always share.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that I really love about doing this podcast is being able to like share the awesome things that people are doing, like when I do these interviews. And so I'm just curious if you have anyone whose work you feel has been super supportive to you in Blooming Bravely that you want to like give a shout out to.
I would say over this past year, I really benefited from the work of Catherine McKenzie Smith. She is a fellow BICA coach who I truly love. And she's just, I don't even have the words to describe her. I just feel as though she understands sensitive, introverted, artistic people so incredibly well. And she's actually, this sounds despicable to say, but she's actually the first person who got me to read Big Magic, because I hadn't read it yet. There's just so many great books on creativity. I hadn't gotten to it yet, but it had been on my list for a while, and she encouraged me to read it. And it had a pretty transformative effect on my viewpoint of myself and how I was going to pursue creativity moving forward, because I think that we have to continuously reapply some of these ideas and lessons, because the opposite is being blasted every day in our faces. So it's nice to find these books that then kind of like anchor you back in. And I think part of what she does in her coaching that is so powerful is that she's just extraordinarily good at understanding what role energy plays in all of this, and how you can show up one day and your energy is going to be completely different than another day, that it's not linear. And so I think she's probably one of the last coaches that I can think of that's just truly, it's almost like you feel coached after being coached. Like the effect is just ever giving. So I would say in the coaching realm that she's definitely somebody that I have a high level of respect for and have benefited a lot from working with. In the musical realm, I feel like there's just so many good resources and teachers now that it's just absolutely endless. In the creativity realm, I have just been so unbelievably impressed with the work of Eric Maisel, who is a coach that trained me in a group to be a creativity coach. And he has a lot of really amazing books and material on creativity coaching. And then Amy from Inspired to Write is one of those people that I just constantly go to if I need my own pep talk on creativity, because she just has such a soulful approach. I think that she just gets what it takes on a soul level, on a deeply emotional level, to show up and do this work. She's very in touch and comfortable with her emotions as a creator, and it shines through her work that she shares about creativity. And I think that sometimes in our newly defined version of what creativity means, it can look like content creators, and that has some bridge over into like hustle culture and productivity culture, and those two things can get very much caught up in each other and ruin, in my opinion, the parts of creativity that benefit me personally the most. And I feel like she kind of helps me fight that in my brain. She's very good at reminding me that it's not about that it's just about showing up and doing what I can. I think she's the person who in 2020 and the going through everything that we're going through with all of the changes really helped me lean back into my practice of morning pages, which has deeply informed my entire year, and I believe well into this next year of how I will approach things, and just helped me get a lot more grounded and really survive during that time period. So awesome. There's a lot. I love people who talk creativity, so it's kind of hard not to name people, but I would say in that realm, like Eric Maisel and Amy have just been invaluable resources to me personally. And I use their teachings all the time with myself and with people that I work with.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, I'll be sure to add those in the show notes so that people can connect. Well, thank you so much, Louise, for spending this time with me. It was wonderful.
Thank you. I feel just so fulfilled after this conversation, Kim, but I'm not surprised. I knew I would be. So thank you for having me.
Yes, my pleasure. Thank you for joining me in the Garden of Belonging. I'm so grateful you've chosen to spend your precious time with me. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, subscribe, and tell friends about it. Your efforts support me in reaching more people. Be sure to also check the show notes for ways to connect further with me and my guests. Until next time, I'm wishing you trust in your inherent belonging.